안녕하세요. We are going to learn some predicates which already contain a negative meaning in it in this lesson. Let's go. I forgot to show you some negative sentence examples with an adjective predicate in the last lesson. So here we go. This garment is not pretty. This garment, clothes, and apparel are all 옷 in Korean. This garment, 이 옷, plus the topic particle, 은, 이 옷은 not pretty, 안 예뻐요. The base form of the adjective predicate pretty in Korean is 예쁘다. The stem is 예쁘. You need to add a present tense ending, 어요. And the 뿌 sound and the 어 sound should combine together because the 뿌 sound doesn't have a final consonant. However, there is no compound vowel, which is a combination of the vowel and the vowel. So the weaker sound, vowel, just disappears. That's why it is not 안 예쁘어요, but 안 예뻐요. If you use the negative compound expression 지 않아요, the stem 예쁘 doesn't change and 지 않아요 is added right after. So 예쁘지 않아요. 이 옷은 안 예뻐요. Or 이 옷은 예쁘지 않아요. Next example. That guy is not handsome. Let's say that here is used to indicate someone who is not here, but you and the listener both know who he is. So you use the determiner 그, that man, 그 남자, and the topic particle 는, 그 남자는 not handsome. The base form of the predicate we use to mean handsome is 잘생기다 in Korean, and it is a verb. I know, it's strange. I think I told you the reason before, didn't I? Anyway, it's mainly because the 생기다 part means something generated or created. 잘 means well. So 잘생기다 literally means well created. So when you say someone is handsome in Korean, you need to put this verb in the past tense. The same thing happens in English too. When you want to use a verb as an adjective, you put it in the past participle form, right? Negative adverb 안 plus the stem 잘생기 plus the past tense ending 없어요. The last letter of the stem, 기, doesn't have a final consonant. Thus, it has to be combined with the next 엇 sound. And it makes the 곁 sound. 안 잘생겼어요. 그 남자는 안 잘생겼어요. If you use the negative compound expression 지 않아요, you need to put the 지 않아요 part in the past tense. The stem 잘생기 plus 지 안 plus the past tense ending 았어요. 잘생기지 않았어요. 그 남자는 잘생기지 않았어요. Now let's learn the predicates that already contain a negative meaning in it. Let's learn how to say something is not something first. It is not my money. It, my money, is not. The subject it comes first and then the complement my money comes after and the predicate with not comes at the end. The pronoun it basically means that thing, which is used to indicate something you and the listener both already know what you're referring to. So you use 그것, which basically means that thing as well. Let's put the topic particle 은 this time. 그것은. In spoken Korean, you can use the contracted form 그건 instead of the original form 그것은. My is 저의 or 제. Let's use the simpler one 제. Koreans hardly use 저의 in real life conversations. Money is 돈. my money, 제 돈. The subject particle 이 is added here. 제 돈이. You might wonder why. Is the money part a subject in Korean? Yes, it can be explained that way too. Let's learn what predicate you use to express something is not something first, and then let's talk about the particles again. What was the predicate you used to express something or someone is something? Yes, 이다. And this predicate, 이다, conjugates irregularly. The stem 이 plus the present tense ending 어요 turns into 이에요 or 예요, right? The base form of the predicate you use to express is not is 아니다. Again, the predicate which has the opposite meaning to 이다 is 아니다. The stem is 아니. So it is supposed to become 아니어요. But as 이다 turns into 이에요 or 예요, 아니다 turns into 아니에요 in the present simple tense form. You can think it's the combination of the negative adverb 안 and the predicate 이에요. And the final 느 consonant goes up to the initial of the next block as if the sound linking rule is applied. And it became one independent predicate 아니에요. It, 그것은 my money, 제 돈이 is not, 아니에요. 그것은 제 돈이 아니에요. Or 그건 제 돈이 아니에요. It is not my money. Okay? Then let's talk about the particle. Why the subject particle 이 is added to the complement 제 돈. You can simply think it's another usage of the subject particle 이가. In other words, the particle 이 or 가 can be a complement particle as well. But unfortunately, this rule doesn't apply to 이다, 이에요, 예요 because 이다 is special. Or you can also think my money, 제 돈 is the actual subject in Korean. As for that thing, if I talk about that thing, 그것은 it's a topic. 제 돈이 아니에요. My money is not. My money is the actual subject. Something like that. It would be very difficult for you to understand this right away. Just think that 이, 가 can be a complement particle as well. And 제 돈, my money, can be the actual subject in Korean. That's enough. Let's move on. Do you remember that you used the subject particle 이, 가 for the object of the predicate 있다? That's slightly different. Let's talk about it on the next page a bit more. Then, can we use the particle 은 or 는 for the complement? The answer is yes. Maybe this topic particle 은, 는 can be added to any noun because it also provides the nuance of comparing or contrasting. Let's just use it and see how it changes the meaning or the nuance of the sentence. 그것은 or 그건 제 돈은 아니에요. 그건 제 돈은 아니에요. If you add a topic particle 은 to 제 돈, it can imply the meaning that it's not my money, but. Then, but what? We never know because I didn't say anything clearly. I just provided a nuance of but using the particle 은. Okay? One good news, if you're not sure about any of these particles, you can just get rid of them all. 그거 제 돈 아니에요. You already know you can remove the particle from the subject if you're not sure, right? 그거 and 제 돈 both can be a subject in Korean. Actually, one is the topic and the other is the actual subject. Anyway, that's why you can remove the particle from both. Make sense? Okay, great. This predicate 아니다, 아니에요 is very useful. You can make many other sentences like Superman is not Marvel. I am not a big fan of a Korean TV drama, and etc. It's cool, isn't it? Let's learn how to say not have in Korean. There's a one-word adjective for this in Korean. Let's see the example. I don't have a girlfriend. Let's rearrange the words. I, a girlfriend, not have. Then how would you say I have a girlfriend? Yes, 저는 여자친구가 있어요. You can use the predicate 있다. I explained it very well as to why you use the subject particle 가 for the object. The same thing applies to the negative predicate, which is 없다. As 있다 basically means to exist, 없다 basically means not exist. You can memorize these negative predicates together with the positive ones. 이다 and 아니다. 이에요, 예요 and 아니에요. 있다 and 없다. 저는 a girlfriend, 여자친구 plus the subject particle 가, 여자친구가. The subject particle 가 is used instead of the object particle 을 because the predicate 없다 that you are going to use next is not a verb but an adjective in Korean. You can also think that I is a topic. As for me, if I talk about myself, and a girlfriend is the actual subject. A girlfriend doesn't exist. Not have. The base form of this negative predicate is 없다. 없 is the stem. Maybe I've never mentioned this before, but you never pronounce both final consonants of the consonant cluster at the same time. And you can add a present tense ending, 어요, 없어요. Let's talk about the pronunciation shortly. Two consonants in the final are called a consonant cluster. We never pronounce both of the consonants in a consonant cluster at the same time. So we only pronounce the first consonant 비읍, b consonant in the final. The second consonant 시옷, s sound goes up to the initial of the next block because there is iung, the empty consonant in the initial of the next block. And because of the 40s rule that I explained, s consonant turns into the double consonant s sound. So it is pronounced 없어요. 없어요. Okay? 저는 여자친구가 없어요. I don't have a girlfriend. You can make plenty of sentences like this using this adjective 없다. I don't have money, I don't have a car, I don't have a house, I don't have a pony, and etc. Then, can we use the subject particle 은 or 는 instead of 이 or 가? The answer is yes. But the nuance of the sentence would change. 저는 여자친구는 없어요. It sounds like you're saying, I don't have a girlfriend, but you can imply something without saying it out loud. Maybe you imply that you don't have a girlfriend, but you have a lot of female friends. Or you don't have a girlfriend, but you have a boyfriend. We will never know what is the hidden meaning of the speaker. But anyway, it would sound like you have something else in mind if you use the topic particle 는 instead of the subject particle 가 here. You might wonder if you can use the other predicate that you used to mean you have something, which is 가지고 있어요 for the same sentence. Let's check out the actual sentence. 저는 여자친구를 안 가지고 있어요. Well, native Korean speakers will understand what you're trying to say, but it would sound very unnatural because you use 가지고 있다 usually for objects, non-living things, or something like thoughts, ideas, or an attitude. Again, 있다 and 없다 can be used for both living things and non-living things, but 가지고 있다 is usually used for non-living things. Now, let's learn how to express dislike or hate in Korean. It's close to the English verb to hate, actually. There are basically two options, one verb and one adjective predicate. 싫어하다 is the verb, which is the antonym, the opposite of 좋아하다. And 싫다 is the adjective, which is the opposite of 좋다. Again, 좋아하다 and 싫어하다 are verbs, and 좋다 and 싫다 are adjectives. Further, the verb 싫어하다 is made by adding the ending 아, 어, 해, 하다 to the stem 실 of the adjective 싫다. Again, 싫다 and 싫어하다 basically have the same meaning, but 싫어하다 is a verb and 싫다 is an adjective. Let's see the example. I hate mosquitoes. I, mosquitoes, hate. 저는 mosquitoes. 모기 means mosquito. Let's add the object particle 를. 모기를 hate. 싫어해요. 저는 모기를 싫어해요. Because 싫어하다 is a verb, you can add the object particle 를 to the object 모기. You can of course say 저는 모기를 안 좋아해요 using the negative adverb 안, or 저는 모기를 좋아하지 않아요 using the negative compound expression 지 않다. But 싫어하다 sounds stronger as the verb hate sounds stronger than dislike or not like in English as well. The final h consonant in the consonant cluster is silent, so you ignore it. And the final l consonant goes up to the initial of the next block, so it is pronounced 싫어해요. You can also use the adjective 싫다. 저는 모기가 싫어요. The subject particle 가 is added to what it seems to be an object 모기 simply because 싫다 is an adjective predicate. You cannot use the object particle with an adjective predicate. You will learn more about this type of adjectives in a different lesson. 저는 모기를 싫어해요. Or 저는 모기가 싫어요. If you ask me about the difference in nuances, I would say the adjective 싫어요 sounds slightly stronger than the verb 싫어해요. Because, adjectives are usually used to express how you feel. Thus, they tend to sound stronger than verbs. Yes, you can add the topic particle 는 to 모기 as well. And it will provide a nuance of comparing or contrasting. 저는 모기는 싫어해요. Or 저는 모기는 싫어요. Then you can imply something else like I hate mosquitoes but I like ladybugs. Something like that. Now let's learn how to say not know in Korean. I don't think there's a verb which means not know in English. Maybe unaware can be the closest word in English, but this is a verb. The base form of this verb is 모르다. 모르다. The stem is 모르, but where you add the ending 아요, 어요, or as어요, 어서요, the stem 모르 part changes a little bit. This is one of the irregular changes. You're going to learn about irregular changes in verbs and adjectives more specifically in the future lessons. So just briefly taste it and move on. Where there is a l sound with a vowel at the end of the stem of a verb or an adjective, you need to see the letter right before the l letter and see if it has a in vowel or a yang vowel. If it has a yang vowel, such as a or o, you should add ayo. If it has one of the other vowels, you add 어요 normally. Let's see the base form of the verb not know 모르다 one more time. It has the o vowel right before the l letter. Again, the mo sound has the o vowel, which is a yang vowel. So you should use 아요. Let's add 아요 to the stem 모르. 모르아요. But there's one more rule to be applied here. If the last letter of the stem is the L letter, you should add lir consonant to the final of the formal block. And the letter L combines with the A sound of 아요. There's no combination of the vowel and the A vowel in the Korean alphabet. Thus, the weaker sound vowel disappears. So it becomes 몰라요, 몰라요. 모르아요 is totally wrong. Let's see the example. I don't know Emma well. Emma. Well, not know. It would sound more natural if you use very well or that well in English, but in Korean, just well is enough, unless you want to emphasize that you don't know her that well. Well can be positioned right before the predicative part because it modifies the verb not know. In Korean, you put a modifier right before the word that is modified, regardless of whether it is a noun, an adjective, a phrase, or a clause. 저는 Emma. It's an object. Emma를 well, 잘. It's an adverb, which means well in Korean. If you do something 잘, you do it to a high standard, to a great extent, or thoroughly and completely. 잘. Okay? Not know. 몰라요. 몰라요. 저는 Emma를 잘 몰라요. I don't know Emma well. Okay? If you use the verb to know in Korean with the negative adverb 안 or the negative compound expression 지 않다, the sentence will not be grammatically wrong, but people wouldn't talk like that in reality. The base form of the verb to know in Korean is 알다. So 저는 Emma를 잘 알지 않아요. Or 저는 Emma를 안 잘 알아요. Yes, both sound so weird to me. So please use 모르다, 몰라요. I guess this is the end of lesson 4. You will learn mostly about the question forms in Korean in lesson 5. I'll see you in the next lesson then. 안녕히 계세요.